The military race between the US and Russia is getting to new levels, especially with the European countries' recent aggression against Ukraine. For this reason, the US military can't afford to not out-innovate Russia in the military space. One asset that the US has in the race that Russia wishes it has is Elon Musk. The billionaire industrialist has been coming up with innovations that the US military can incorporate into its military assets. Stay tuned to find out the latest innovation. One such asset is the terrifying but secretive hypersonic fighter jet that the US is developing under Project Mayhem that would come in handy against Russia. Elon Musk is a versatile inventor, and his genius capabilities span several products across several industries. For example, he's already left his mark on the EV industry by being solely responsible for bringing EVs to the limelight and turning them into vehicles that people lust over. As a result, his EV company Tesla is the biggest in its category, shipping the most electric cars for a single company last year. Tesla is also the biggest automobile company judging by market capitalization. The military has been following Tesla's progress closely and is now working on using one of the company's strengths in its hardware, which is its battery. The US Air Force has given a contract to Lockheed Martin that will see laser weapons mounted on fighter jets. The laser system needs an energy storage solution, and Lockheed Martin is turning to the same lithium-ion powered batteries powering EVs. Thanks to innovations by Tesla, EV lithium-ion batteries have matured to the stage that the US Air Force will use them in fighter jets. With the relationship between them, it's little wonder that the CEO wants to make a supersonic jet. In a tweet, Musk exclaimed that he was dying to make a supersonic jet. However, Musk is going the battery-powered route by making the jet electric. It's easy to imagine that Musk doesn't like the fossil fuel-powered private jet he uses and would like to retire it as soon as possible. However, Musk's pals over at the US Air Force are working on a secretive hypersonic air vehicle program named Mayhem. The Pentagon recently released some details about this project that kept war analysts guessing for some time now. However, before we get into all the juicy details about the secretive Mayhem project, what does a hypersonic flight exactly mean? Let's take it from the basics. As an aircraft moves through the air molecules near the aircraft are disturbed and move around the aircraft. Exactly how the air reacts to the aircraft depends on the ratio of the aircraft's speed to the speed of sound through the air. Because of the importance of this speed ratio, aerodynamicists have designated it with a special parameter called the Mach number in honor of Ernest Mach, a late 19th century physicist who studied gas dynamics. For aircraft speeds that are much greater than the speed of sound, the aircraft is said to be hypersonic. Typical speeds for aircraft that are hypersonic are greater than 3,000 miles per hour and have a Mach number m greater than 5. Why is hypersonic aircraft the choice for modern warfare? Brad Leland, former program manager for hypersonic at Lockheed Martin, said hypersonic aircraft coupled with hypersonic missiles could penetrate denied airspace and strike at nearly any location across a continent in less than an hour. Speed is the next aviation advancement to counter emerging threats in the next several decades. The Mayhem program was previously officially known as Expendable Hypersonic Multi-Mission Air Breathing Demonstrator, but has now changed to Hypersonic Multi-Mission ISR and Strike. However, Mayhem is part of a larger Air Force research lab effort known as Enabling Technologies for High-Speed Operable Systems, or ETHOS. What does the Air Force want to achieve with Mayhem? The aim is to deliver a large-class air-breathing hypersonic system capable of executing multiple missions with a standardized payload interface, providing significant technological advancements and future capability. The system goal is to carry payloads 5 times the mass and double the range of current technology-capable systems. The standardized payload interface would create multiple opportunities for various payload integration within the same hypersonic system. Due to the secretive nature of Mayhem, no information is provided about the current technology capability systems that the program requirements have been derived from. In fact, the contract document says that this requirement will be classified secret, possibly requiring top secret access at later stages of the requirement. But we now know that Mayhem has a program ceiling of $371 million. The Mayhem air vehicle will carry one of the 3 payloads, including Area Effect Payload, a large unitary payload, and a Responsive Intelligence Surveillance and Reconnaissance, or ISR payload. But what payload exactly is the Air Force interested in with Mayhem? Putting together some possibilities, it's possible that the Air Force is talking about a distinct area effect, and large unitary types strongly suggest that the first one envisions a payload of cluster munitions or something similar, such as a swarm of small drones. An advanced high explosive fragmentation warhead would also provide an area of effect, but would be a unitary design. At the same time, large unitary might cover larger warheads designed to provide different kinds of effects against single targets, such as deep penetrating capabilities for use against bunkers and other hardened facilities. Don't forget that these are just some possibilities, and with the information available now, we can't say for sure what the exact designs of these payloads might be. The ISR package could similarly include any number of different sensors, but of course the Air Force has previously confirmed that Mayhem is connected to research and development of advanced scramjet propulsion technologies and multi-cycle jet engine designs. This had appeared to work on turbine-based combined cycle, or TBCC, or dual-mode scramjet engine types. The basic idea behind these kind of jet engine designs is to get around the fact that scramjets and ramjets do not perform reliably at lower speeds. Coupling them with a more traditional jet turbine would enable an air vehicle to operate reliably at lower speed ranges. When applied to a reusable manned or unmanned aircraft, this engine configuration would theoretically allow for a design that could fly at hypersonic speeds during the mid-course portion of the sortie, and take off and land more like a traditional plane using existing runway infrastructure. This has long been seen as the holy grail capability for a viable hypersonic aircraft. Michael White, the principal director for hypersonics in the Pentagon's Office of the Director of Defense Research and Engineering for Modernization, described Mayhem, saying that Project Mayhem is to look at the next step in what the opportunity space allows relative to hypersonic cruise missile systems. It very much remains to be seen how the Air Force's Mayhem program will evolve and what prototype designs it ultimately produces. Recently, the conflict between Russia and America escalated more after Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, demanded that the sky over Ukraine be closed. Russian President Vladimir Putin responded that the creation of a no-fly zone over Ukraine would be considered by Moscow as participation in an armed conflict. The president of the Russian Federation said in these exact words, "Now we hear it's necessary to make a no-fly zone over the territory of Ukraine. It is impossible to do this from the very territory of Ukraine. It is possible only from the territory of some neighboring states, but any movement in this direction will be considered by us as participation in the country's armed conflict whose territorial threats to our servicemen will be created. At the same moment, we will consider them as participants in a military conflict, and it doesn't matter what kind of members they are, members of which organizations. I hope there is an understanding of this, and it will not come to this." The United States opposes the idea of introducing a no-fly zone over Ukraine. The White House said that its provision requires the presence of U.S. armed forces. If that is the case, the no-fly zone means that we're waging war against Russia directly. However, a petition to NATO about introducing a no-fly zone over Ukraine gained millions of votes, and the alliance was obliged to consider the appeal, but quickly denied this. NATO's Secretary General, Jens Stoltenberg, admonished that if a no-fly zone is introduced, the whole of Europe should be ready for war. Having said no-fly zone repeatedly, what does the phrase no-fly zone mean in an armed conflict? No-fly zones are introduced over the territory of a state when there's an ongoing military conflict. In fact, this leads to strict ban on actions of military aviation. The sky is closed, so if any aircraft flies into the area, it will be shot down immediately. A no-fly zone is not unique to war or military conflict alone though. It could be imposed on objects even in times of peace. These restrictions could be over stadiums, squares with a large crowd, or government buildings during large events. Therefore, any military aircraft that flies into a closed zone will be immediately shot down. Also, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken rolled out the introduction of a no-fly zone. He believes Ukraine can handle the situation on their own. On February 27th, the Russian president ordered that the deterrence forces should be transferred to a special combat duty mode for all actions of American and NATO countries. Therefore, if any country shot down a Russian plane, that would mark the beginning of the Third World War. In addition, White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki stated despite the fact that 9 countries now belong to the nuclear club, the total size of nuclear arsenals is several times smaller than those that were during the Cold War. On the other hand, the president of Ukraine attacked NATO leaders verbally in his speech. He said that they have refused to introduce a no-fly zone around the country. Zelensky said the West's refusal or reluctance to intervention has encouraged Russia to keep bombing cities and villages. The White House insisted that the United States is against the idea of introducing a no-fly zone over Ukraine. According to White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, ensuring a no-fly zone will require the presence of U.S. armed forces, which will mean potentially direct conflict and a potential war with Russia, which we don't want to enter. 37 countries have closed their airspace to Russia. It's tough to leave Russia for most parts of Europe. Let's hear what you think about the secretive Project Mayhem in the comment section below.